Okay. I'm doing the Montessori curriculum on this PowerPoint. The Montessori. Montessori is named after a Dr. Maria Montessori. She did scientific observation on children to see how they learn things from birth to childhood. Montessori is used almost everywhere. The Montessori is unique because they changed how we thought children learn. It changed how we think young children do things and how they learn to do things. I think is what I meant to put. Not entirely sure what I meant to put there. I would implement this model in my school, making sure I know that there is a difference on how children learn. And here's a video on the Montessori schooling. Let's watch it and see what happens.
They grow up way too fast.
Oh,
Hi everybody. Today I'm going to share with you the 8 principles of Montessori. Now, whether you're a parent or a principal of a school or a teacher who's looking at implementing Montessori, these 8 principles are absolutely essential for you to understand. Without understanding this principle, of course, it's easy to buy materials and to use it with the children, teach them some pouring, transferring, etc. However, without these 8 principles, half of the benefits or even more than half of the benefit of Montessori is lost. Now, what are these 8 principles? The first principle is movement and cognition. Now, what Maria Montessori says is that without movement, there cannot be any learning. A child has to move to be able to learn. Even we as adults, when we have a new phone, say, in our hands, we can't just learn how to use it without actually exploring with the material, without moving our hands. Even as I'm speaking now, I'm using movement. So movement is absolutely essential. Life itself starts with movement. And without movement, there is no cognition. So wherever you're setting up your Montessori environment, make sure there is enough room for the children to move around and to explore. That is absolutely essential. Now, the second principle is choice. Now, it has been observed that learning and well-being are improved if people have a sense of control over their lives. So, if you give children choices, say for example, you give a few choices of materials on the shelf and children go and choose their own material, what happens here is that because they're able to choose what they want, they then have a sense of control over their learning. So this sense of control it helps them to improve their learning. If you allot a child a material and say, here, you have to do this, you can't do any of these other materials, you just have to focus on this. After you finish this, then I'll give you another material. You make the choices. The child then he does not have the sense of control. And if he does not have that sense of control, he will not be likely to take ownership of what he is learning. The third principle is interest. Now, when people have an interest in something, they will learn better. We know that. We know that with ourselves. So similarly with children as well. When they're interested in something, then they're definitely going to learn better. The fourth principle is extrinsic rewards are avoided. Now, if you have to give children reward, say we give a sticker if they do a good job, or you put a star where they, it doesn't really work, because then they are only being motivated by what they get from you. Rewards are really not necessary. Children are not looking for rewards to do something which they're interested in. Giving them rewards only will spoil their learning. What happens when you give rewards to children is that they get motivated because you're giving them a reward. Then one day, when you withdraw that reward, the motivation then drops. So it is just not good. What we want children to do is to have self motivation, because self motivation is a quality you want to build in the child that will carry on a long way in life. The fifth principle is learning from and with peers. So what does this mean? This means that children learn better when they are in a collaborative environment. That is why in a Montessori environment you have the age group 3 to 6 years, in a classroom. What happens here is that they tend to learn from each other. Younger children will observe the older children and they will try to imitate what they do and they will follow what they do. And the older children here have the opportunity then to stand up as leaders to guide the little ones. The sixth principle is learning in context. So what this means is that if you have to bring our learning in the classroom or with your child at home, you have to make it, meaningful. Say, for example, if you're learning about insects, you want the children to explore more about insects and stuff. So instead of just learning abstractly with pictures and stuff, take them to a meaningful context. Maybe take a walk and observe the insects in the park or under the tree, observe some bully ants. And then you bring that learning back to the child. So what happens here then is that, it becomes more meaningful. The child has observed the insects in the natural environment, and then he must have developed an interest towards it, and then you talk about it in the classroom. Maybe you put a nature table, so it becomes a more meaningful context. Then the child will be able to learn, and the learning will be much richer and deeper. The seventh principle is teacher ways and child ways. Now, particular forms of adult interactions are associated with more optimal child outcomes. What this means is that, if a teacher knows how to interact with a child, then, she will be able to bring better outcomes from the child. Now, there are specific ways that a teacher may interact with a child. Now, this is what we teach in our diploma in Montessori education. What is the language that you use with a child? How do you interact with a child? And this interaction then will bring more positive outcomes from the child. The eighth and the last principle is order in environment and mind. If you walk into a Montessori classroom, what you will observe there is, there's complete order in the environment. You will see 5 different areas. In each area, every material has got a place. There is a place for every material, and every material is in its place. Even at the end of the day, once the children are done with the materials, it goes back into place. They have respect for the environment. When there's order in the environment, and when you encourage children to, maintain this order, to respect the environment and to respect the order in the environment, then the child will be able to also have a certain order with the things that he learned in his mind. What is in the environment will then be formed in his mind. These are the 8 principles. I hope you've enjoyed this session. And if you have any questions, just send me an email and I'll be happy to connect with you. I look forward to sharing much more of Montessori with you all. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Here is a picture I found of Montessori versus traditional. In Montessori, okay, child, you scared mommy. Prepared environment is connected to child, which is also connected to teacher. Whereas you just go straight from teacher to children. You don't have that thing where they're more in depth with the children as you do in traditional. What makes Montessori unique is that she saw different ways that children can learn on a scientific way and not just in a classroom based setting. She thought that maybe there's another way that we can do this without just slapping them in a classroom and saying, here's what you need to know, here's what you need to teach them, seeing what else we can teach them. Here is a Montessori classroom with two, two teachers and a bunch of different settings, but it's not cluttered all at the same time. It's easy flowing classroom. I would use the Montessori ideas in my classroom to help all the children I would be teaching and helping through my time as a teacher and anywhere I could help children out. Here is a lesson plan that is Montessori inspired for homeschool teachers, but I think you could use it in an actual preschool at the same time. And that is the end of my presentation.